Yes, yes.
Okay. Few people are supposed to join today. One of them has already joined, Mitali ji. Hmm. We'll just wait.
Jai Shri Krishna, sir.
Jai Shri Krishna, ma'am. So, ma'am, if you want to, avail of the recordings, so they are there on the, okay, they are there on the link, the Google Drive link.
The link which you have shared yesterday, I have
Yes.
seen those recordings are there.
Yes, on the Google Drive, all the recordings are there. Most of them, some of them I forgot to record or something happened. So
Right.
this has been going on for last few months. We began from the beginning, and basically we just read, somebody reads the paragraph, and then we read it again, and I try to delve deep into it, and then if there is any question or anything, we allow
Right.
that. Otherwise, we move forward like this. That's why the pace is a little slow. Sometimes we are able to not cover more than 2 paragraphs. Again, depends on the length of the paragraph.
End of the paragraph. Right.
Okay. 8.1. Okay. I think we'll start. Nobody has really confirmed. Archana will join half an hour later. We'll start. So, okay. Because of the power in the previous one, we'll just reread the previous one, and then we'll start with the remaining paragraph of this chapter. Dhaval bhai, will you read the previous one? All which seems to show that here is an element.
Yeah.
Please.
All which seems to show that here is an element in existence, perhaps the initial element, which we do not know how to conquer, either because it cannot be conquered or because we have not looked at it with a strong and impartial gaze so as to recognize it calmly and fairly and know what it is. We must look existence in the face if our aim is to arrive at a right solution, whatever that solution may be. And to look existence in the face is to look God in the face, for the two cannot be separated, nor the responsibility for the laws of world existence be shifted away from Him who created them or from that which constituted it. Yet here too we love to palliate and equivocate. We erect a God of love and mercy, a God of good, a God just, righteous, and virtuous according to our own moral conceptions of justice, virtue, and righteousness. And all the rest, we say, is not He or is not His, but was made by some diabolical power, which He suffered for some reason to work out its wicked will, or by some dark Ahriman counterbalancing our gracious Ormus, or was even the fault of selfish and sinful man who has spoiled what was made originally perfect by God. As if man had created the law of death and devouring in the animal world, or that tremendous process by which nature creates indeed and preserves, but in the same step and by the same inextricable action slays and destroys. It is only a few religions which have had the courage to say without any reserve, like the Indian, that this enigmatic world power is one deity, one trinity, to lift up the image of force that acts in the world in the figure not only of the beneficent Durga but of the terrible Kali in her blood-stained dance of destruction, and to say, this too is the mother. This also know to be God. This too, if thou hast the strength, adore. And it is significant that the religion which has had this unflinching honesty and tremendous courage has succeeded in creating a profound and widespread spirituality such as no other can parallel. For truth is the foundation of real spirituality, and courage is its soul. Tasyai satyam ayatanam.
Right. So it's the way he ends this paragraph, that because the Hindu religion has had this clarity that both the sides of existence are there, and it will not do to shut your eyes to what you are not able to understand. It's mysterious because it is negative or whatever, and to put the responsibility of that on something else, that will not do. And that is why, because of this courage, this honesty in its seeking, that Hinduism has survived everything and is still, alive and kicking, so to speak. Right? We'll read the next one. We had discussed this in length last time. So, Yogesh bhai, will you read the next one? All this is not to say.
Yeah,
Please.
all this is not to say that strife and destruction are the alpha and omega of existence, that harmony is not greater than war, love more the manifest divine than death, or that we must not move towards the replacement of physical force by soul force, of war by peace, of strife by union, of devouring by love, of egoism by universality, of death by immortal life. God is not only the destroyer, but the friend of creatures, not only the cosmic trinity, but the transcendent. The terrible Kali is also the loving and beneficent mother. The Lord of Kurukshetra is the divine comrade and charioteer, the attractor of beings incarnate Krishna. And whithersoever he is driving through all the strife and clash and confusion, to whatever goal or Godhead he may be attracting us, it is, no doubt of that, to some transcendence of all these aspects upon which we have been so firmly insisting. But where, how, with what kind of transcendence, under what conditions, this we have to discover. And to discover it, the first necessity is to see the world as it is, to observe and value rightly his actions as it reveals itself at the start and now. Afterwards, afterwards, the way and the goal will better reveal themselves. We must acknowledge Kurukshetra. We must submit to the law of life by death before we can find our way to the life immortal. We must open our eyes with a less appalled gaze than Arjuna's to the vision of our Lord of time and death, and cease to deny, hate, or recoil from the universal destroyer.
Right. Thank you. So, lest we get the idea that, destruction is everything, and, that kind of wrong notions, all this is not to say that strife and destruction are the alpha and omega of existence, that harmony is not greater than war, love more the manifest divine than death, or that we must not move towards the replacement of physical force by soul force, of war by peace, of strife by union, of devouring by love, of egoism by universality. Ego means division, basically. So the removal of that leads to the universality. Uni means one, of death by immortal life. That is not what we are saying. Okay. Obviously, these things are superior to fighting and destruction and all this. There's no doubt about this. God is not only the destroyer, but the friend of creatures, because for the last 4-5 paragraphs, he has been stressing on the aspect of war and destruction, hunger that is death, and the eater eating is eaten, all these sort of, very in your face, if you may say, these quotations from the Upanishads, right? So God is not only, so he's correcting himself before the chapter is ending. There should not be doubt that you're fighting where there is no need to fight. So no, and obviously the love and all these things what you have said, immortal life and all that is superior to the negative counterparts, right? God is not only the destroyer, but the friend of creatures. This comes explicitly in the last verse of the 5th chapter. Suhridam, that is the word. एक और जगह पे है in the 8th or 9th, I'll have to look that up. भोक्तारम यज्ञ तपसाम सर्वलोक महेश्वरम सुहृदम सर्वभूतानाम ज्ञात्वा माम shantim richati. So when you know me as the enjoyer, Bhoktaram of all yajna and tapas, all sacrifice and austerity, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, as the great Lord of all worlds, and Suhridam Sarvabhutana, as the friend of all beings. There is no partiality in the divine. Samoham Sarvabhuteshu, he says. Suhridam Sarvabhutana. He is the friend of everybody. Jnatva mam shantim vrichati. When you know me as such, then you attain to peace. Shantim vrichati. Right? So, in other words, if you do not discover this true friend, which is the friend of everybody and in the hearts of everybody, till such time one cannot really have peace. The Kathopanishad says this same thing about peace in other words, other ways. Chetanas chetananam. मैं share कर दूंगा अभी इस वक्त. I'm not exactly able to remember, but very powerful verses. एको वशी सर्वभूतांतरात्मा एकम रूपम बहुधा यः करोति तमात्मस्थम येनु पश्यन्ति धीराः तेषां सुखम शाश्वतम नेतरेषां नित्यो नित्यानां चेतनश्चेतनानां एको बहूनां यो विदधाति कामान् तमास्थम येनु पश्यन्ति धीराः तेषां शांतिः शाश्वतीः नेतरेषां. इसके ट्रांसलेशन वगैरह में मैं I'll share the link. So, in other words, but basically, you have to find him, discover that divine dwelling in your heart, and only then you can have peace. Right? Sri Aurobindo in Savitri. Our life is a paradox with God for key. So, it will remain paradoxical. We'll not be able to truly make out the meaning of our life till such time as we find the divine within ourselves, that internal divinity. In the chapter on the divine teacher, what did he say? The Krishna who matters is the eternal incarnation, not the historical teacher and leader of men. That avatar which is always within you, that friend which is always within you, right? So much to dwell on this. Not more than this I needed, I feel. Not only the cosmic trinity, but the transcendent, that which is beyond everything. Okay. This is important. Individual, cosmic and transcendent. जब तक ये repeat करना पड़े हम repeat करेंगे when we are studying Sri Aurobindo. This is one way he tells that how existence is organized. These are the three main aspects. Transcendent, which is beyond everything, cosmic, and the individual, divine within us. Just as the cosmic embraces the individual, so the transcendent embraces the cosmic. Sri Aurobindo says this in the Life Divine, right? So, the terrible Kali is also the loving and beneficent mother. The Lord of Kurukshetra is the divine comrade. Comrade word comes from communism actually. Matlab brother in arms in the sense that you are doing the same thing. You are partners in work, partners in an ideal like that. Sahakarmi, something like this. Okay. And charioteer, the attractor of beings, incarnate Krishna. So the word, ये मैंने पहले भी refer किया था. This is what the word Krishna literally means, the attractor. Dhatu is Krish. क के नीचे री वाली वॉवल, आई उ ऋण ऋट में री वाली वॉवल, एंड कृश धातु षटकोण वाला श with halant. Akarshana. So you have put a na after krish, so it becomes karshana, and then the prefix a, so it becomes akarshana. Dhatu is the same. So Krishna, point is the knowledge point. Krishna means, the word itself means the attractor. Sri Aurobindo at one place in his letters, he calls the divine the supreme magnet, which is pulling you towards himself in, whatever way is best suited right now. You may not know it, but he is pulling you towards himself all the way, all the time. Okay? Yeah, tractor of beings incarnate Krishna, and whithersoever मतलब जहां भी ले जा रहा है, wherever he is taking us, and whithersoever he is driving through all the strife and clash and confusion to whatever goal or Godhead. ये यथा माम प्रपद्यन्ते तांस तथैव भजाम्यहम मम वर्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः. Second part of the shloka, it is my path that men follow in all ways, O son of Pritha. 4.11. So whatever goal, whatever path you're following, ultimately you're going to the divine only. What yoga does is it accelerates the process. Clearly, Sri Aurobindo says this in the Synthesis of Yoga. He quotes Vivekananda. Yoga can also be understood as accelerated evolution. So ultimately we are going there only, but yoga accelerates the process, right? So these are some fundamentals I'm repeating now and then. To whatever goal or Godhead he may be attracting us, it is no doubt of that, to some transcendence of all these aspects upon which we have been so firmly insisting. Because ultimately that is where they get harmonized and united. Otherwise you can be lost in the multiplicity of the aspects, right? But where, how, with what kind of transcendence, under what conditions, this we have to discover, and to discover it, the first necessity is to see the world as it is. It won't do to live in an imaginary idea of what the world is. There is, if you are ignorant, you don't escape the law, the cosmic law and whatever is operating. You are ignorant.
Anmol,
Yes.
as you said that yoga is it's accelerating.
Evolution.
Yeah, that's what we are doing. Otherwise, we are going to the same thing. To accelerate it, here in the earlier line, it says that we are replacement of physical force by soul force.
Yeah.
So we all understand physical force. By soul force, you've said that we always bring the attention to the divine which is within us. By usko unki taraf hum we put it as this offering to them.
Yeah.
So when we say soul force, to operate in soul force means to operate with the attention on the divine operating through us as the instrument. Is that what it means?
Exactly. And I mean, जैसे इसमें कुरुक्षेत्र की बात हो रही है, and you have to fight, and this is the inner war without escape. All that is there, it is correct. But there is the other side also, that this is not जो साधक होता है, okay? अहिंसा का व्रत उसे कहीं ना कहीं लेना पड़ता है. He cannot be indulging in hinsa, because just cannot. It will break his tapas, it will break his concentration and everything. So, and just, because his aim is to reach that fundamental oneness which is underlying everything. So, in Raja Yoga, for example, ahimsa is one of the yamas, and without those 10 things as a basis, you cannot reach the goal of yoga. So, it has to be seen in a balanced way. No doubt, even in yoga, these adverse forces are there which try to impede your progress, right? So you have to call in the divine Shakti either, or if you have the balam yourself, the power, the strength, then you counter them yourself. So it is a battle. But still, one should not forget that ultimately there is that oneness which is behind everything. And soul force जो आप बोल रहे हैं, basically, not counteracting physically or in this kind of fashion, but being in a state of surrender to the divine, and then in that state, whatever goes from you, that way. So essentially, but वो हम एग्जांपल पहले कर चुके थे, वो वशिष्ठ विश्वामित्र वाला जो था, उसमें हमने सोल फोर्स वर्सेस फिजिकल फोर्स को we had discussed quite a bit.
Anmol bhai,
Yes.
one counter example. Our rishis themselves were also fighters, and at the same time were
Not
doing
all of them.
sadhana also, right?
Not all of them. Some of them.
Some of them. Like,
Parshuram, for example, was a rishi also,
huh,
and he was a warrior also. Okay.
huh,
Some rishis were having brahmastras and all,
huh.
but Dronacharya was like, he was like Acharya, wo rishi kahe nahi kahe, I'm not so sure.
Not
But
Dronacharya.
not all of them were fighting.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes they were giving military training.
Yes,
Sometimes they were
yes.
giving divine weapons.
And
Because,
maybe, yeah, even a modern day example, if you take Yogi Adityanath, right?
yeah.
He's a sadhak, but at the same time, he is a warrior also.
Very good example. Very true. Very true. Very true.
So, yes, we all sadhaks
Yeah.
must adhere
yes,
to
that-
ahimsa as a law.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
if the need be, एक हाथ में माला है तो दूसरे हाथ में
Absolutely.
भाला भी लेना पड़ेगा.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
अगर कोई चीनी भाई इधर आ जाए हम पे हमला करने तो sorry.
Of course, of course, of course, of course. चीनी का भी जहां तक है ना, one must keep in mind कि what is happening in China right now. Okay, it's only the last 75 years or so since the communist revolution that the whole thing has changed, and it's a temporary phase. If
अच्छा
you look
अच्छा.
at the history of China, they had very close ties with India.
Yeah.
And Sri Aurobindo at one place he says that there are two countries in the world जिनके अंदर सत्व गुण, the highest guna, it increased too much too soon, and that is why they became kind of incapable of defending themselves against aggressors. One is India, second is China, he says.
अच्छा.
Yeah, so in their mind they are very bright.
Yeah,
And again,
intellectually. Yes.
Again, बहुत चीजें हैं उसमें. There is a rural China versus the urban one. So rural के अंदर there is a lot of solidarity and वहाँ culture है, and वहाँ पे ये सब नहीं है. They
अच्छा.
follow their own Taoism or whatever religion, right?
हाँ.
But and again, वो सब उसमें नहीं जाते. CCP जो है Communist Party, that is like the chief troublemaker. It's not the Chinese people as so much.
अच्छा.
It's the party which is really, really defective, and उनको भी अकल आ रही है. We're not discussing politics here, so we won't go further. But
No,
even
no.
they are coming to their senses. They withdrew their troops from Galwan, no? They withdrew around a year ago, तो वो अकल आ रही है उनको. Anyway. So continuing. Under what conditions this we have to discover, and to discover it, the first necessity is to see the world as it is. Okay. It is a battlefield. Kurukshetra, Kuru means to do. मतलब वो होगा लोट लकार. Kuru means to do. Kshetra means the field. In the Gita 13th chapter, the body will be called the field. Idam shariram kaunteya kshetramitya vidhiyate. This body is the kshetra, this body is the field. So this is the battlefield. This is the Kurukshetra literally. Right? Anyway, to observe and value rightly his action as it reveals itself at the start and now, afterwards the way and the goal will better reveal themselves. We must acknowledge Kurukshetra. This is what he is wanting us to do. We must acknowledge Kurukshetra, the nature of the world as it is right now, and function accordingly. Not in the world as it will be after 500 years or 1000 years. You will not be there, you will not survive. That future will not come for you if your ideas about the present are, too hunky-dory or imaginary. That present may not come itself for you. You might be, पहले एक sentence आया था ना, नहीं उसमें I'd quoted के the Asuric forces they trample over, whereas the saintly people, they are calling for the sword of the hero and the word of the prophet. So anyway, we must acknowledge Kurukshetra. We must submit to the law of life by death. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuh dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Whoever is born, for him death is certain. Whoever is dead, for him birth is certain. Both are there. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuh dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Tasmad apariharyerthe. That which is apariharya, that which you cannot change. Natvam shochitum arhasi. You should not grieve about it. So we must submit to the law of life by death. हम सबका जो life अभी है, it is life by death. We know that we will have to leave this body at one point in time, but we have to submit to that law, and through this human body, and that's the aim actually, to become immortal, to realize that immortality while we are having this body, while we are donning this human body. Otherwise, again, the effort has to be made, and it has to be made till it is done. Nature in her own course will take a long time. For
Even
example,
Isha,
generally in people.
Anmol bhai, even Isha Upanishad, there is this verse number
Brahmantam
with
Shariram.
Athedam Bhasmantam Shariram, and then through death you achieve immortality. That Mritamash, I forgot the exact verse, but
हाँ. Sambhutyamritamashnuते hai.
Sambhutyam
Not
Mritamash.
through death, through birth, you enjoy immortality.
Yeah.
उसमें नहीं जा रहे हैं, because
No, just
that is a
I
subject in
recalled.
itself.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, so we must submit to the law of life by death before we can find our way to the life immortal. There is a purpose in this. And in fact, even in the human body, I mean, progress stops happening after a certain time. And in order for progress to continue, it is necessary to leave the body and take on a new body. The body decays basically. So, and also the human consciousness, the way it is there right now, if you give an unlimited amount of time, then nobody does anything. Oh, itna time pada hai, kyun karna hai? Tamoguna comes into play. Vishadi Dirgha Sutra, procrastination. Baad mein. But when you know you have limited time, so you buck yourself up and you like, okay, kuch karna hai. Time is not so much as I'm thinking. I have to do something in this life. It's all very valid right now as evolution is. Okay. So death is not there are beautiful poetic lines by Sri Aurobindo on this. Death ke upar ke. Anyway, I'll share them after the session. So we must acknowledge Kurukshetra, we must submit to the law of life by death before we can find our way to the life immortal. We must open our eyes with a less appalled gaze than Arjuna's. Appalled means terrified, pila pad gaya, pale, to the vision of our Lord of time and death. And see stood in a Mahakal. Shiv ko bolte na Mahakal, because he destroys time. Mahakal literally means the great time. Right? One of the names of Shiva. And cease to deny, hate or recoil from the universal destroyer. Basically, the element of destruction and war and all that, it has its place and it has to be recognized as such. That's what the sum and substance is. Right? Any question, anybody?
So, Anmol,
Yes.
this is suggesting that if you look at the mind-body complex without the spiritual understanding, it's survival of the fittest. That you keep on being the best version because the world is going to come out at you. You got to defend yourself. So it says that is the first phase. And to enhance that, even though you're focusing on improving yourself all the time, you must realize it's a divine play and therefore the soul force. So basically, it's saying both are equally. You still need to engage with the world to be the best version. As he talked about Yogi Adityanath, that he keeps on doing whatever it takes to be a political, leader of stature. But he knows it's the divine playing through him. That's the combination.
Yeah,
Is that a right understanding?
That he is playing a role right now, and Abhi, at this point in time, this kind of attitude is necessary. On the whole, what you're saying is right. That's more or less the right understanding.
Perfect. Thanks.
Somebody has dropped off. Okay. So shall we start the next chapter, Man and the Battle of Life? Okay. Who would like to read? Archana ji, would you like to read?
I'm actually outside. I'll listen in today.
Acha. Okay. Mitali ma'am, would you like to read?
Sir, I'm trying to find out actually the first time. So,
Ma'am, you can see on the screen. I'm sharing the screen.
Right.
If it's taking time, then somebody else can also read. It's just Sarita. Who is it? Sarita Saraf or Sarita Jindal? Nobody is responding. Kya kare bhai? Somebody has to read. Manoj ji.
Yes, sir.
Please read, sir.
Chapter 6.
Yes.
Man and the Battle of Life. Thus, if we are to appreciate in its catholicity the teaching of the Gita, we must accept intellectually its standpoint and courageous envisage of the manifest nature and process of the world. The divine charioteer of Kurukshetra reveals himself on one side as the Lord of all the worlds and the friend and omniscient guide of all creatures. On the other, as time, the destroyer, arisen for the destruction of these peoples. The Gita, following in this spirit, the spirit of the Catholic Hindu religion, affirms this also as God. It does not attempt to evade the enigma of the world by escaping from it through a side door. If, in fact, we do not regard existence merely as the mechanic action of a brute and indifferent material force, or, on the other hand, as an equally mechanical play of ideas and energies arising out of an original non-existence, or else reflected in the passive soul, or the evolution of a dream or nightmare in the surface consciousness of an indifferent, immutable transcendence, which is unaffected by the dream and has no real part in it. If we accept at all, as the Gita accepts, the existence of God, that is to say, of the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, yet always transcendent being, who manifests the world and himself in the world, who is not the slave, but the Lord of his creative consciousness, nature or force, Maya, Prakriti or Shakti, who is not baffled or thwart in his world conception or design by his creatures, man or devil, who does not need to justify himself by shifting the responsibility for any part of his creation or manifestation on that which is created or manifested. Then the human being has to start from a great but difficult act of faith. Finding himself in a world which is apparently a chaos of battling powers, a clash of vast and obscure forces, alive which subsists only by constant change and death, man menaced from every side by pain, suffering, evil, and destruction. He has to see the omnipresent deity in it all, and conscious that of this enigma there must be a solution, and beyond this, ignorance in which he dwells a knowledge that reconciles. He has to take his stand upon this faith. Though thou slay me, yet will I trust in thee.
Though thou slay me.
All, though thou slay me, yet will I trust in thee. All human thought or faith that is active and affirmative, whether it be theistic, pantheistic, or atheistic, does in fact involve more or less explicitly and completely such an attitude. It admits and it believes, admits the discord of the world, believes in some highest principle of God, universal being, or nature, which shall enable us to transcend, overcome, or harmonize these discords. Perhaps even to do all three at once, to harmonize by overcoming and transcending.
Right. Man and the battle of life. Thus, if we are to appreciate in its Catholicity, so Catholicity means a kind of broad-minded view of things. That is what the word basically is. Liberal view, larger that way, not narrow. Thus, if we are to appreciate in its Catholicity the teaching of the Gita, we must accept intellectually its standpoint and courageous envisaging of the manifest nature and process of the world. So this kind of resistance and then moving forward, then little more this is the process. Kurukshetra, that battle and all, that has to be recognized. It is the process how the evolution is happening right now, because it is still in the ignorance. Sri Aurobindo promises about the supramental evolution, which will happen more and more in the knowledge, where this kind of conflict will be less and less, right? But as of now, as we see, again, it depends from what perspective you see. But if you see from a certain perspective, then there is still a lot of this opposition and friction and all that in the world, you know. The divine charioteer of Kurukshetra reveals himself on one side as the Lord of all the worlds and the friend. Here again, the references to 5.29, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. An omniscient guide of all creatures. On the other, as time the destroyer, arisen for the destruction of these peoples. This he is quoting from 11.32. Lokan samahartumiha pravritta. Lokan here means peoples. That is a Sanskrit phrase. Time the destroyer, arisen for the destruction of these peoples. Acha, to be kept in mind, there was a gap of a month between the previous edition of the Arya and the next edition of the Arya, in which Sri Aurobindo first serialized the essays on the Gita. So, you know, kind of in the first paragraph, he again picks up the thread from the previous one, and the first paragraph generally gives a summary of the ideas of the previous chapter. You don't find this every time, but sometimes we find this, depending on the necessity. Okay. Arisen for the destruction of these peoples, the Gita. Following in this, the spirit of the Catholic Hindu religion affirms this also as God. It does not attempt to evade the enigma of the world by escaping from it through a side door, repeating the same idea in different words. If in fact we do not regard existence merely as the mechanic action of a brute and indifferent material force, or on the other hand, as an equally mechanical play of ideas and energies arising out of an original non-existence. There can be no such thing as non-existence. That's just a concept. Nothing can come out of nothing. Okay. So non-existence is just a mental concept. There is no such thing as non-existence. The Upanishad, one of the Upanishads says it clearly. Chandogya Upanishad. Arising out of an original non-existence, or else reflected in the passive soul, जो पुरुषा प्रकृति की theory है, or the evolution of a dream or nightmare in the surface consciousness of an indifferent, immutable transcendence, which is unaffected by the dream and has no real part in it. If we accept at all, as the Gita accepts, the existence of God, that is to say, of the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, yet always transcendent being. So he's giving a definition of God here. What is God, or who is God? The omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, yet always transcendent being who manifests the world and himself in the world. Who manifests the world, जो विश्व को प्रकट करता है, and himself in the world. Who is not the slave, but the very long sentence. I mean, this is one of Sri Aurobindo's peculiarities. One of the reasons why his study takes time and perseverance. Who is not the slave, but the lord of his creative consciousness, nature or force, Maya, Prakriti or Shakti. Oh, this is going on and on. Where does it end? My God. Okay, anyway. Maya, Prakriti or Shakti, who is not baffled or thwarted in his world conception. Here I might say that the equivalent words for the masculine side are, so it's Brahman Maya, Purusha Prakriti, Ishvara Shakti. There is a chapter in the Life Divine with that title. So just for information and for completeness of knowledge sake, who is not baffled or thwarted in his world conception or design by his creatures, man or devil, who does not need to justify himself by shifting the responsibility for any part of his creation or manifestation on that which is created or manifested. Then the human being has to start from a difficult act of faith. Here the sentence ends.
So this is amazing sentence actually.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
last
yeah.
line is the key part. As
Yeah.
I understood, and
Yes.
weaving it with the previous chapter's conclusion,
Mm.
key good and bad, we don't
Yes.
have to
Yes.
run away from it,
Yes.
and both are God, and we have to then begin with the act of faith. We have to start the sadhana
Yes.
with the shraddha. I think
Yes.
that's what it means in
Matlab,
to me. I don't know.
through all the battle and struggle and ugliness or whatever, the faith has to be there that the divine is there
Yeah,
it all, and no matter what, he is carrying all this forward, and he's taking the evolution where it should go. Only for good
yeah.
the secret will can work. This is one line from Savitri. So this faith needs to be there. अपने नॉर्मल भाषा में जो बोलते हैं कि जो होता है अच्छे के लिए होता है.
Correct, correct. So
But
asuras also come in
very
your life.
important.
It's okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
very important. This faith needs to be there because we are not putting the responsibility for what is negative or unpleasant to some devil or something. We are saying this is also
Yeah.
God, and this is part of the process of God's self evolution. It is He who has involved Himself and hidden Himself from Himself. It is He who is evolving Himself and revealing Himself to Himself. And this is part of the process of that self revelation, progressive self revelation.
Correct,
Right?
correct. And this beautiful thing over there, Anmol bhai, omnipresent, that is all present. Omniscient is all pervasive, if I'm not wrong, right?
Which
And
one?
the three words, omnipresent, omniscient,
Omnipresent
and
means that which is everywhere. Omni means all.
ah, all correct. So
Even that
all
Om in
present.
that, na? I once wondered whether that Om in the Omni is an indicator of the divine. Doesn't matter. So,
Uh-huh.
omnipresent means
But
everywhere.
all
Omniscient
pervasive
means
will
you
be
know
omniscient.
everything.
All
Omnipotent means
pervasive, no? Is it all pervasive?
which
Omniscient
one?
means
Which
all
one?
pervasive.
Which one?
Omniscient.
No, 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 no,
Omniscient.
no, 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 no. Shient ke andar the root is psi, SCI, which means to know.
Acha, acha, acha.
So omniscient means the all knower, Sarvagya.
Sarvagya. Oh, yeah. Okay.
And omnipotent means all powerful, Sarva Shaktiman. So, Sarva Vyapi, Sarvagya, Sarva Shaktiman.
Sarva
Where is the problem?
Vyapi. No, try to
Omnipresent
Sarva.
means Sarva Vyapi.
Yeah,
Omniscient, Sarvagya, he who knows everything.
correct.
Omnipotent is Sarva Shaktiman or Sarva Saksham. Sarva Shaktiman is a better word.
Yeah, correct.
So, yeah, very long. I mean, what should I do? Should I read it again or? I mean, I
No,
think
I
the
think.
essence is understood, right? Because
Yeah. The gist
okay,
is
so
understood.
I'll just read on. Finding himself in a world which is apparently a chaos of battling powers, a clash of vast and obscure forces, a life which subsists only by constant change and death, menaced from every side by pain. Menaced means threatened. Menaced from every side by pain, suffering, evil, and destruction. He has to see the omnipresent deity in it all. Why not? In pleasant things, it is easier to see, but in unpleasant,
Yeah,
how to see that ये भी वही है.
ये भी वही है. ये जो है ना,
इसमें भी
as per
वही है.
Anmol
He
bhai,
is present in this also.
this is very difficult, Anmol bhai, for
That is why.
modern Europeanized mind.
Yeah.
ये हम लोग क्योंकि we are
Actually,
so
that is one of the
conditioned
things
by
we have
good
to.
and bad lens कि
Modern Europeanized mind का जो positive चीज है, that has to be retained, the scientific rigor and all that. But this skepticism, this lack of Shraddha, this loss of the sense of sacred in the Europeanized mind, the sense of sacred is not there as it is there in the Indian mind. So all
Correct,
all
correct,
those
correct.
gaps, major gaps, fundamental flaws, they have to be corrected. And fortunately, I mean, none of us are Europeans at
या
least.
नहीं हमारे यहाँ क्या है ना, हमारे यहाँ हाँ नहीं वैसे नहीं बोल रहा हूँ मैं, बट माइंड तो वैसे कंडीशन हो गया है, बट ऑल्सो हमारे यहाँ क्या है कि टेंडेंसी इज टू ब्लेम इट ऑन द कर्मा, कुछ खराब हुआ अरे मेरे कर्म का
Sri
फल
Aurobindo
है,
never does
या
it.
ऐसे करके हम लोग
In Sri Aurobindo's writings, you will hardly ever find him doing.
हाँ
कभी नहीं मिलेगा, hardly क्या, कभी ही नहीं मिलेगा. His guidance
हाँ
is
नहीं मैं कह रहा हूँ ये
you,
जनरल टेंडेंसी है.
yes, you do the sadhana of going within yourself, okay? You find your inmost
हाँ.
soul, your true soul, the psychic being. Bring it forward and become the master of your destiny. This is what he teaches. He does not say that obviously karma will have no repercussions. It will be there. In the ignorance, mistakes will be made and they will have their, inevitable consequences. But Sri Aurobindo's idea is that
But
of
if but
parat.
at some point
Replace the ego. अभी आपके जो being का
yeah
throne है
yeah
ना, right now on the singhasan, on the throne of your being is seated the ego. That has to be, it has to abdicate.
correct.
It has to leave the throne. And in its place, the psychic being has to sit there, the Antaratman, the soul, the true soul, the portion of the divine, and that has to govern the whole life. And when that starts governing, then start becoming master of your destiny. That happens to you what you consciously want. You're not suffering the effects of previous karma. It's a free action to some extent.
Yeah, that is correct. So even your previous karmas are annulled if you operate from the divine this thing, right? That's exactly the promise Shri Krishna gives. Aham tva sarva papebhyo in the end, right? To Arjun also.
Correct. And conscious that of this enigma, there must be a solution. And beyond this ignorance in which he dwells, a knowledge that reconciles. यही जो knowledge with the capital K है, this is the supermind. Vijnana Kosha. This is what the Vijnana Kosha truly is. Knowledge. It knows. There is nothing that it does not know. Okay? Knowledge that reconciles. He has to take his stand upon this faith. Though thou slay me, yet will I trust in thee.
So Anmol bhai, the ignorance I which is capital here would then be representing body, mind, life?
Yeah,
Because it's division, right? Divisive.
हाँ, yet will I trust in thee. This I will, that soul, that faith of the soul coming into the mind to some extent that way. Simply in the body, mind, life, you cannot have such a faith on your own. This kind of faith comes from the deeper entity within us.
The psychic
The
being, you
purpose
mean,
of this
right?
book is also to arouse that, to enlighten us to the true meaning of God, what is supreme, what is divine, what is God, and in the process, awaken the psychic being. A relatively concentrated reading of this book, it has so much Shakti, it will inevitably awaken the psychic being. It will bring it forward. The bhakti will come, knowledge will come. One will start understanding one's evolution better and start mastering one's life. It's a very powerful book, very, very powerful book. This is the right way to read it, silently in a concentrated way, so that the Shakti in the book, it awakens the Antaratman. It, उसको strengthen करता है, it brings it forward. Purohita, जो word होता है, पुरह means in the front. बोलते हैं ना पुरस्तात संस्कृत में. पुरस्तात, पश्चात, अधस्तात. पुरस्तात means आगे. Purohita, Agninile Purohitam.
Purohitam.
It comes forward. It starts leading the life. Anyway, so all human thought or faith that is active and affirmative, whether it be theistic, pantheistic, or atheistic. Theistic means God is there, pantheistic means all is God, atheistic means there is no God. Pan means all. Does in fact involve more or less explicitly and completely such an attitude. It admits and it believes, admits the discords of the world, admits, believes in some highest principle of God, universal being or nature, which shall enable us to which shall enable us to transcend, overcome, or harmonize these discords. Perhaps even to do all three at once, to harmonize by overcoming and transcending. And that is actually how the true harmonization will happen, by overcoming and transcending. A problem cannot be solved at the level at which it was created. This is a quotation attributed to Albert Einstein. It is applicable to yoga also.
Yeah.
You have to have that Divyam Janma into the higher Prakriti. Otherwise, break, without breaking free of the, कैसे भी उसको बोल लो, break free of the ego, be born into the higher nature, however you may phrase it. The point is कि it has to be overcome and transcended. ये Zoom user कौन है? Okay.
So one of the views, Anmol bhai, then is to take death as an elevation also. As
Elevation.
elevation to higher consciousness. If
Death is, see, life and death is nothing, it's just a process of evolution.
correct. But that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Because it's being a process of evolution,
Yes.
it is that small rung in the ladder which helps you
Exactly. It's just a step.
Yeah.
It's a milestone. So in this particular life, I have made this much progress.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before I leave my body, Sri Aurobindo says, at the moment of leaving the body, the soul decides what will be its next birth, circumstances, etc. It kind of determines it already
Oh, before leaving.
at the point of leaving the body.
I thought
it is there in the letters.
I thought somewhere in the rebirth book he says there is a
So phrase
gestation
है, it
period.
fixes it करके. This is the phrase, it fixes it. Rebirth वाले में it is assimilating.
Yeah, it's assimilating the
And
psychic
then
being
when the
is
time has come for rebirth, then it kind of looks from top and जो conditions उसको चाहिए हो, it already knows the conditions that it wants in its next birth. Okay.
but
it is already decided before leaving the body, the previous one.
I thought that
But
the psychic being after assimilation decides
after
what.
assimilation, it simply looks from above and
Acha.
tries to look for a suitable matlab parent or
Environment,
circumstances, environment.
Yeah.
And then when it sees, that light and it kind of resonates
A
with it,
resonance. Yeah.
then it immediately plunges down and वो होता है. That's all.
Acha.
This is what mother has explained.
Acha.
अगर मुझे मिल जाएगा, this is more difficult to find, but if I'm able to find it, I'll share I'm yet to share the references for the previous session also. They were not too many. One I had shared, but 3-4 more quotations I am yet to share, so I'll try to do that tomorrow. Right? So, yeah, it's 8:53 right now. We had started at around 8:03 or 4. What should we do? Next paragraph, we will be able to complete for sure. We can merely read it probably.
Yeah, let's read it.
Yeah. तो कौन पढ़ेगा?
I
I
can
don't-
read, sir.
हाँ?
Can I read?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Then, as to human life in its actualities, we have to accept its aspect of a struggle and a battle mounting into supreme crisis, such as that of Kurukshetra. The Gita, as we have seen, takes for its frame such a period of transition and crisis as humanity periodically experiences in its history, in which great forces clash together for a huge destruction and reconstruction, intellectual, social, moral, religious, political, and these in the actual psychological and social stage of human evolution culminate usually through a violent physical convulsion of strife, war, or revolution. The Gita proceeds from the acceptance of the necessity in nature for such vehement crisis, and it accepts not only the moral aspect, the struggle between righteousness and unrighteousness, between the self affirming law of good and the forces that oppose its progression, but also the physical aspect, the actual armed war or other vehement physical strife between the human beings who represent the antagonistic powers. We must remember that the Gita was composed at a time when war was even more than it is now a necessary part of human activity, and the idea of its elimination from the scheme of life would have been an absolute chimera. The gospel of universal peace and the goodwill among men, for without a universal and entire mutual goodwill, there can be no real and abiding peace, has never succeeded for a moment in possessing itself of human life during the historic cycle of our progress, because morally, socially, spiritually, the race was not prepared, and the pulse of nature in its evolution would not admit of it being immediately prepared for any such transcendence. Even now, we have not actually progressed beyond the feasibility of a system of accommodation between conflicting interests, which may minimize the recurrence of the worst form of strife. And towards this consummation, the method, the approach which humanity has been forced by its own nature to adopt, is a monstrous mutual massacre unparalleled in history, a universal war full of bitterness and irreconcilable hatred, is the straight way and the triumphant means modern man has found for the establishment of universal peace. This consummation, too, founded not upon any fundamental change in human nature, but upon intellectual notions, economic convenience, vital and sentimental shrinkings from the loss of life, discomfort, and horror of war, affected by nothing better than political adjustment, gives no very certain promise of firm foundation and long duration. Should I go ahead? It's quite long, this paragraph.
Yeah, it's 5 more lines. You can continue.
Yeah.
Read till the end of the paragraph.
Right, right. A day may come, must surely come, we will say, when humanity will be ready spiritually, morally, socially for the reign of universal peace. Meanwhile, the aspects of battle and the nature and function of man as a fighter have to be accepted and accounted for by practical philosophy and religion. The Gita, taking life as it is, and not only as it may be in some distant future, puts the question how this aspect and function of life, which is really an aspect and function of human activity in general, can be harmonized with the spiritual existence.
Yeah, exactly. So,
What a beautiful paragraph.
yeah, how can spiritual existence be reconciled with
Reconcile, yeah.
necessary slaughter?
And
Basically,
it's
that
so
is
true. It is so true now. Given the geopolitics that and the churn that's happening, my goodness, not just true at the time that this article was written.
yeah. True. Only as mother said, there will be no third world war. That won't be there. That is for sure.
Oh, okay.
The existence of Auroville is a proof that it won't be there.
Acha,
In
acha.
fact, I've heard from more than one source
Mhm.
that the existence of Auroville is like, an occult plug कि वो लगा दिया है अब वो now third world war cannot happen.
Acha, acha, acha,
It's
acha.
always very significant that way. Anyway, so it's already 9 almost. If there's anything to discuss, I think it's better to do that and close with silence. इसमें we'll have to start. I'll start reading from this from the beginning in the next class, Friday. I'll try to explain this, जो भी इसमें explanation necessary है. Shall we just close with silence then for today?
Yes, Anmol bhai.
Yeah.